Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, it is so great to have you. I'm Antoinette, a New Zealander living in Germany. And in this video today, I am going to be talking about a topic that is very, very normal in Germany, that is considered quite controversial in many other English-speaking countries, Anglo-Saxon countries. And that is the topic of resumes. In New Zealand, we call them CVs, but for this video, I'll just say resume because it's more international. Resumes in Germany are structured very, very differently, and I'm not going to be getting into every single aspect of the resume. I'm just going to be focusing on the personal information in that resume because it is very, very different what is expected in Germany and what is expected in English-speaking countries. So when you are applying for a job in Germany, it is required that you have a photo on your resume. It needs to be a very professional looking photo, and it is a very specific size. You need to provide your full name, your address, your phone number, your email address, your date of birth so they know how old you are. You also need to include whether you are married or single, etc., your marital status. You need to include how many children you have, if you have any children. You also need to include where you were born. And so if any of this information is missing, your resume is considered incomplete. And so these are all the requirements for the personal information on a German resume. And in New Zealand, and from my research in basically every other English-speaking country, you do not add much personal information at all. It is very, very different. So you do add your name, your full name, your address, your email address, and your phone number, and that is it. You do not add a photo unless you are applying for, say, a modelling job or an acting job. But apart from that, no photo is required. You do not have to say how old you are. You do not have to say how many children you have. It's basically just very basic personal information. It's actually considered unprofessional in many English-speaking countries to add too much personal information in your resume. And the reason for this is that many countries, Anglo-Saxon countries, have discrimination laws. I was really, really surprised when I saw my husband getting his resume ready to apply for jobs in Germany, and I saw that he had to include a photo and all of this personal information about himself, because none of this is required in New Zealand to apply for a job, and I thought it was really discriminative. I personally did not like the fact that your employer could judge you on how you look, where you were born, and how old you are, and it didn't make sense to me to have to, expose yourself completely just in a resume, and this could hinder your chance of getting your foot in the door for a job. My opinion was that every single person should have an equal opportunity of getting their foot in the door for a job interview, regardless of what they look like, how old they are, how many children they have. I don't think somebody should be rejected for a job interview because of these things, because that person may be absolutely perfect for the job when you meet them in person, and they may have an amazing personality, and they are able to just get in there and prove themselves in person rather than being automatically discriminated against because of what that person sees on paper when they read through their resume. For example, if a female states their age, maybe they are in their late 20s, early 30s, and they may be at the age where they're thinking about having children. It's a very common age for women to want to have children, and then the employer thinks, she's not going to be any good, we don't want her because she's going to need some time off when she has kids, and that kind of thing. Or maybe somebody is discriminated against because of the place they were born. For example, my husband was born in Auschwitz, Poland. And, when you hear the word Auschwitz, it sends a shiver down your spine because everybody knows what went on in Auschwitz. My husband has to add that in every single resume, which it may not affect his chances of getting a job, but it definitely sort of adds a bit of a negative association with him if they see the word Auschwitz on his resume. Of course, he's proud of being Polish, and Auschwitz was the place he happened to be born, but I don't think that he should have to state that on his resume if he doesn't want to. I personally think that adding too much personal information on a resume could very much hinder somebody's chance of getting a job, and you know, there's discrimination everywhere whether we like it or not, and I think the less personal information the better, because it gives everybody the equal opportunity to get their foot in the door for a job interview and prove themselves in person. And so my husband, he actually has a different opinion about this, which I was really surprised about. We had a big chat about this, and he stated his opinion and why they do this in Germany, and I sort of shared my opinion of why we don't have a lot of personal information on our resumes in New Zealand and English speaking countries. And it was a really interesting conversation. It was a very open conversation, and I started to see his point of view. So my husband's opinion was that he thinks it's crazy that you would hide personal information about yourself in a resume, and the person that is interviewing you is going to find out eventually anyway all of this information. Why don't you be straight up honest at the beginning, right from the very beginning, about how old you are, how many children you have, you know, all of this information is something that is going to be eventually found out. So basically it's just like beating around the bush in a way, so it's kind of avoiding facing this in an interview. I just kind of thought that by not adding this information in your resume, it's giving you more of a chance to get your foot in the door and prove yourself in person, as I mentioned. But my husband's opinion, Rob's opinion, was that you're just kind of delaying this whole process. Because what if you are, you know, getting all ready for this job interview, you're really excited, and you turn up to that job interview and you are not at all what the employer is looking for that position, because it's the whole package when it comes to getting a job. It's not just your qualifications. He just thinks in the long run it makes the process of getting a job so much easier, because the employer knows exactly what to expect. And I had a little think about it, and I still kind of didn't agree with him, but then it got me thinking about my auntie back in New Zealand. She's married to a guy, so my uncle, who lost his job when he was in his late 50s. So he was faced with having to look for a job at that age. He had an amazing resume, and he had so much potential, and he got so many job interviews, and as soon as they saw him face to face and saw that he was in his late 50s, then they were not interested in him anymore. He had to go to all the effort of getting ready for each of the interviews, having to research the company, having to prepare himself every time, only to get rejected because of his age, which is so sad. And that is still discrimination, because he was discriminated against because of his age. If he from the beginning had just added his photo and his age, it would have saved so much effort and so much disappointment, because the person would have looked at that resume and seen, okay, we don't really want a person this age for this job, and so he wouldn't have been considered for the job. He may not have been given as many opportunities, but if somebody saw his resume and they saw his photo, they saw his age, they saw his qualifications, and they thought, okay, it doesn't matter about his age, he has the qualifications that we want, and they genuinely are interested in this man for this particular job, so he would have much more of a chance of getting that job. Walking in there, and the employer already knows what he looks like, how old he is, you know, it's just kind of like, this is me, this is who I am, and I'm applying for this job, I'm not hiding anything. Still, my opinion is that you can't judge a person by what's on paper, what they look like in a photo, and you can't really judge a person until you meet them in person and they can prove themselves in person. Because somebody may not be, say, stereotypically good looking, but they may have an amazing personality, amazing charisma, and you never would get to find out what the person is like if you completely rejected their resume based on what they look like and how old they are. So that is my opinion, but I can see Rob's point of view, and he can also see my point of view as well. So it's a really interesting conversation to have. I would love to hear your opinion about this, because I am still very torn on this topic. Do you think that Germany does it the right way with adding a photo and all of this personal information on your resume? Or do you think that it's better in English-speaking countries to not include this information to avoid discrimination? So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd love to have an open conversation about this. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. I would love you to consider subscribing to my channel. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram, and I will see you again really soon. Bye!